That verse was, he's giving people like moments. That verse was a moment to talk about. Are you listening to it now? Okay.
Yesterday somebody whacked out my mural.
I kind of lost like a little respect for the sentiment of the verse. If it's really f everybody, then it needs to be f everybody. It just can't be halfway for the sake of the people.
It used to be f that, but now it's plural. F everybody.
Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, the song structurally swole bowl of bars that poked holes in hip-hop's hungriest stars, scarred some and outbarred by none, a verse that vertically aligned plenty penmen in their prime but left some songwriters salty and crying, divine that lengthy lines of rhymes could catapult the king to climb the line of lyricists at the tip top. To this day, that control verse still vexed and affects hip-hop, so in this pot of clips shopped, I've cooked the most cooked to classic reactions of the drastic verse that shook the game. So puncture the like and subscribe buttons like a vein as we aim to go through every rapper's reaction when King Kung Fu Kenny called out their name.
I study
King Kung Fu Kenny
for a living.
Now, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, every once in a while, hip-hop just stops. The beat keeps playing, but the whole culture just freezes. Because somebody said something so bold, so unexpected, that it shakes everything we thought we knew about the game.
Spicy.
And on a dark evening of August in 2013, that somebody was Kendrick Lamar. Names were dropped, egos were tested, and suddenly the entire rap world had to decide. Are you competition? Or are you comfortable? Years later, Kendrick Lamar would reflect on some comments Jay-Z had about this moment that Kenny created. Hood politics, Kendrick raps, I resolved inside that private hall sitting down with Jay. He said it's funny how one verse can F up the game. And man, that was not just a compliment, it was a prophecy. Because here we are a decade later, not just still talking about that verse, but still feeling its aftershocks. Think about that for a second. Have you ever seen a single verse echo through hip-hop for over 10 years straight? This wasn't just music. This was a moment that split time in half. Before Control and after it. The crazy part is that Kendrick himself didn't know when he was recording that verse the type of impact and shakeup it would leave on the game. It was only after he saw the reaction from his peers and fans alike that he realized hip-hop hadn't been shaken up in a long time.
Did you know when you went in just to do that verse that it would take and it would have this kind of impact on music?
I didn't know until after you see the hooray and hoorah about it, the fact that hip-hop hasn't been shaken up in a long time.
So before we get into the shakeup that this verse caused, let's understand Kendrick's intention behind recording the verse in the first place. And there's not something deep or layered to unpack here. Kendrick really just recorded the verse with the intention of having fun.
You know, when I went in and did the verse, I thought I was just having fun. But I see how the world took it and flipped the media. I realized, okay, it has been 10, 15 years before there's been some type of shaking up in the game. And I think hip-hop is a sport, so you're going to have these little spits and spats. And it's all good because, personally, I respect these dudes as people.
But in fact, after Kendrick Lamar laid the verse down, he realized there might be some repercussions. And according to TDE Punch, his first intention was to scrap the verse completely. But Punch told him to keep it in the spirit of competition.
He sent me the song. He was like, yo, what you think? I'm like, oh, it's perfect. And he told me, he was like, he wanted to give Sean another verse. But Sean was like, nah, keep that competitive MC stuff.
Now, it's important to note this verse had a ripple effect for two main reasons. Number one, of course, the slew of rappers that Kendrick mentioned as his contemporaries or his peers, declaring that he wanted to eradicate all the competition, they all had something to say about it. And everyone who wasn't mentioned in the verse, but felt like they should have been, also had a reaction to it. I'm not joking when I say that 95% of hip-hop had a response to this verse in one way or another, and we'll break them all down. And we'll place them into 6 categories. You got the comedians, those are the rappers that poked fun at the entire situation. Then you got the co-signers, those are the guys that understood the competitive spirit behind the verse and backed up the intention completely. Then you got the haters, whether it's rappers who felt like they should have been mentioned, who felt like Kendrick was placing himself at too high of a pedestal that he didn't deserve at that point in his career, or maybe they were mad for being mentioned in the verse, or maybe they were mad because they weren't mentioned in the verse and they felt like they were worthy competition and should have been looked at as such. Then you got the responders. These are the rappers I back the most because these are the guys who actually got back in the booth, understood the assignment, and expressed their opinion on what Kendrick had said in that verse with a verse of their own. Then you got the confused. This is a collection of rappers who maybe either didn't understand Kendrick's intention with the verse. Was it love? Was it hate? Was he really trying to kill them? Or was he giving props? And these confused rappers, they weren't necessarily hating on what Kendrick did with Control, but in one way or another, they were confused. And then finally, we got the clown show. You can probably guess which rapper created a clown show reaction to Control, but you'll see that later in this video.
Spicy.
Because like I mentioned, it wasn't just the fact that Kendrick called out a slew of rappers by name on this verse that had people pissed. It was also the fact that he declared himself the king of New York. More specifically, he raps, "I'm Machiavelli's offspring. I'm the king of New York, king of the coast. One hand, I juggle them both." Huh? This had New York in a frenzy. What made a kid from Compton with 2 albums under their belt feel like he was worthy of declaring himself the king of the Mecca of hip-hop, a coast he was not from? Well, TDE Punch had clarified that what Kendrick was implying here is that he was both Biggie and Tupac. Biggie, of course, being the king of the East Coast, Tupac being the king of the West. Kendrick raps, "I'm Machiavelli's offspring." Machiavelli was, of course, Tupac's alias. He then follows it up by saying, "I'm the king of New York." Biggie was widely regarded as the king of New York, but he follows it up afterwards saying, "King of the coast. One hand, I juggle them both. I embody both Pac and Biggie."
The King of New York bar, what was the meaning?
He was saying he was Pac and Biggie. Because he said, I'm the king of New York and the king of the coast. He's talking about the West Coast. One hand, juggle them both.
And what's funny is this would not be the first time that Kendrick Lamar would declare that he embodies both Tupac and Biggie. And it also wouldn't be the first time that on one verse, Kendrick would call out a slew of some of the biggest players in hip-hop to declare that he wants to be bigger and better than them all. On his Monster freestyle way back in 2010, Kendrick not only declared that he is both Biggie and Tupac by rapping, "B, I think I'm Tupac, B, I think I'm B.I.G, B, I think I'm Eazy-E, I'm Big L, I'm OBD, and OMG, I might OD, yeah, that be my new tape, that's appreciation tape, thanks for knowing that I'm great." Kendrick would also call out all of the best rappers alive at the time, saying, "I'm the best rapper alive. Tell Lil Wayne to swallow his pride." And that line aged amazingly, considering the sequence of events that happened down in 2024. But Kendrick continued, "I'm the best rapper alive. Jigga Man shoulda retired. I'm going after Kanye, Lupe Fiasco, and Nas, Snoop Dogg and Mr. Andre, Eminem, bust a rhyme. Y'all better not bust no more rhymes. I'ma start busting your ASS. I study ASS for a living." So really, Kendrick's Control verse followed the blueprint of his Monster freestyle from 3 years prior. Call out your competition by name on wax, declaring yourself the better MC, and comparing yourself to 2 ghosts that you're trying to chase, Tupac and B.I.G. But this Control verse was different, right? This came less than a year after Kendrick shook the game up with his debut studio album, Good Kid, Mad City. Just like that Control verse leaving an unprecedented mark on hip-hop, Good Kid, Mad City was the first time in a long time where we felt like we heard an undisputed classic right off the rip. It was a breath of fresh air within the genre as it reintroduced the art of storytelling, merged with cohesive sequencing, capturing the sound and the essence of the West Coast, while creating several generational cultural anthems in Mad City, Money Trees, and a lot more. But that was just one album, and this Control verse came out just 10 months after that album. So what gave a rapper the confidence who had accomplished, at the time, from a quantity perspective, not even half of what a lot of the peers he called out by name on this verse already had? Why would he think it's a wise idea to go at them and declare himself the best rapper alive? And how are we still feeling the ripple effects of those declarations 10 plus years later? Well, in order to understand that, we gotta understand the reaction that this verse initially got from the game. right off the rip between the King of New York bars to calling out everyone who was anyone at the time. Of course, most rappers did what most rappers did back in 2013, which was hit Twitter to give their reactions. As you can see, Lebron loved the verse, tagging it as real hip-hop at its best. Talib Kweli questioned the skill set of New York rappers, asking if they're ready to stop rapping like they're from the South yet. Tyga, a West Coast native who was not mentioned on the verse, said that the verse inspired him to get back in the booth and stop rapping like the money went to his head. As you can see, it also inspired East Coast natives like Fabulous or Joe Budden to get back in the booth. These were the immediate reactions to the verse on the night that it dropped. But we gotta take a look at one rapper who brought humor to the entire situation, and that was the comedian. Mac Miller, the only legend who was actually mentioned in the verse, who brought a unique little angle to his reaction to Kendrick Lamar calling him out. So just to recap your memory, before calling out all these different rappers by name on the verse, Kendrick raps, "I'm usually homeboys with the same guys I'm rhyming with, but this is hip hop and those guys should know what time it is." And that goes for, and then he lists off all the rappers who he deems are his biggest competition back in 2013. Earlier in the verse, he puts himself amongst the greats. He says, who's the best MC? Kendrick, Jigga, Jay-Z, and Nas, Eminem, Andre 3000, the rest of y'all? New guys are just new guys, don't get involved. But then he names all those new guys, right? Jermaine Cole, aka J. Cole, Big K.R.I.T, Wale, Pusha T, Meek Mill, A$AP Rocky, Drake, Big Sean, Jay Electronica, Tyler, and Mac Miller. Caps it off saying, I got love for you all, but I'm trying to murder you guys. Trying to make sure your core friends never heard of you guys. They don't want to hear not one more noun or verb from you guys. Basically saying like, I'm trying to be so great that all of your fans, to all the people I just named, they won't want to hear another word from you guys because they'll only be moved by my words. Well, he said, your core fans won't want to hear not one more noun or verb from you guys. So Mac Miller tweeted out, if I can't do no more nouns or verbs, I'm gonna start coming with the wildest adjective bars that anyone has ever heard. Cause of course Kendrick didn't say adjectives were off limits. But Mac would rap a couple nouns aimed at Kendrick on a later record called Friends, where he said, I got them 4G LTE connection bars, no control, F Ken Lamar, F you Kendrick.
No control, Ken Lamar.
Now again, these bars were all in good fun. This was an obvious joke, right? And Mac Miller later said in an interview that he thought it was cool that Kendrick mentioned him on the verse.
I don't think I ever talked to you after post Kendrick shouted you out on Control. I don't think we ever talked about that. But that was a very limited list that you got that shout out on.
Yeah, man, I'm nice.
Were you surprised though? Or did you like fully expect it? Like,
no, I wasn't. Like, I was like, cool.
Another rapper who was a comedian about the entire thing was Riff Raff, who had some bars of his own that he didn't put in a song, but instead put them on Twitter, tweeting out on the night that the verse dropped, rapping, Kendrick winning, I'm diamond grinning, we both record spinning, he told me he getting on my Neon Icon album while he was swanging through Finland. Now, can someone reply in the comments, what the hell happened to Jody High Roller, aka Riff Raff? I don't think it was that Control verse that sent him off, but I haven't heard from him in ages. Royce da 5'9" was also kind of a comedian about the whole thing, tweeting out, and they say lyrics ain't in style, E to D. And Dr. Dre was also kind of a comedian about it. And these were all pretty much cosigns for the most part, with a little comedic edge, right? But there were a slew of rappers who were not funny about the fact that they really loved what Kendrick Lamar did here. And these are the cosigners. So starting off, let's take a look at what some of the vets, some of the legends had thought of this verse. Remember again, before he actually names off who he deems as his competition, Kendrick emphasizes that he thinks he's in the league of the Jay-Z's, Andre, Nas, Eminem, and Andre 3000. So Eminem, who was technically called out on that verse, had given his thoughts on it. And he emphasized that he loved it. This is the energy that every MC should feel. Like they're the greatest. They're above their competition. And he liked the time that Kendrick chose to actually drop that verse, because this is at a time when there was more camaraderie than competition. And no one had the guts to jump out the gate and call out the entire game like that, name by name. And it's funny because it would only be Kendrick Lamar himself a couple years later with his verse on Like That, where we'd see this moment semi-recreated for the first time again since Control.
One of the things that's so great about that verse, he did it in a way to me that you can't really get mad at him, because that's what every MC should be thinking. The fact that he had the balls to say it is what's incredible to me, because he did it at a time where nobody is really doing that anymore. It's been a while since anybody's went down that lane. The timing was perfect too, so I think it's a genius move what he did.
And similar to Eminem, 50 Cent, his protege, echoed a lot of those sentiments in his own reaction. We know 50 himself loves a good conflict, so he was very happy that Kendrick was bringing this type of energy and emphasizing that there was no more kumbaya stuff going on within the game.
It's a breath of fresh air for me, because it's saying that there's no more kumbaya, my lord. Everybody's not sitting by the campfire being friends. Like, that's necessary for hip hop. That's what it is. I thought it's competitive. Yeah, we can smile, take pictures, but then you know that the next presentation the person's gearing up for is supposed to shake everything. If yours ain't right, bye-bye.
So I want to play you guys this just so you understand how the OGs are looking at this verse, right? Especially what 50 Cent says there, in that we could all like each other, right? We could take pictures at award shows, we could be buddy-buddy, but your mindset as a creator should always be, I want my next work to be so great that it shakes the entire game up. And if you're not on that same level, then it's adios to you. That's what Kendrick was coming with on this Control verse. He emphasizes it by saying, after he calls everyone out, I got love for you guys, but I'm trying to murder you guys. What's competition? I'm trying to raise the bar high. Who's trying to jump and get it? Nas understood it too. He said he loved the energy that verse brought to hip hop.
I really wanted to get your reaction to that.
Wow, my reaction is wow. Love hip hop right now.
The energy and the competitiveness?
Yeah.
Kanye West had a funny reaction. He was asked about the verse and he said, I don't do disses, which is hilarious because you guys probably remember when Kendrick first dropped his Like That verse where he was aiming at J. Cole and Drake in 2024. Kanye was the first one to jump back with a diss record aiming at Drake, backing up Kendrick with his first bar being, yo, Dot, I got you. So 10 years prior to that, for him to say, you know, I don't do diss records as a response to the whole Control thing is kind of funny, but it was a cosign in and of itself because he had also said he was gearing up to do his Yeezus tour where Kendrick would be the opener, and he was just super excited to sit down with Kendrick and have some very high-level conversations. So we'll place him in the cosign category.
I want to talk to you about the verse in Control. He put you at the table with the Eminems and the Jay-Z's. 10 years ago, if you hadn't been at the table and you'd been on his list, how do you think you would have reacted? Would you have been appreciative of his message, or would you have come out swinging, do you think?
Yeah, I don't do diss records.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to the opportunity to speak to this brother as much as possible. Those conversations is going to be more than everything I even said right here. He's one of our future messengers, and I'm going to give him them jewels.
Now, along with Kanye West, we got one of his good music sainies and someone who was actually mentioned in the Control verse himself, Pusha T. Pusha was in an interesting position because, of course, we know he came up in around 2002 with his brother Malice as the Clips, long before Kanye West, long before a lot of the guys mentioned as Kendrick's competition within the verse. However, in 2013, Pusha T was building a solo career of his own. Some people looked at it as weird, as Kendrick didn't mention, you know, the Lil Waynes, the Kanye Wests, 50 Cents, but he mentions a Pusha T who is from that same era, but places Pusha in that bracket of competition amongst the Big Sean's and Drake's and J. Cole's as Kendrick's competition in this generation. And that's because Pusha T was basically starting this whole new path as a solo artist. So even though he was a heavily accomplished member of the Clips long before Kendrick had ever even put out an album, they were now kind of on the same playing field as Pusha T was basically starting off a whole new career. And they had a collaboration in the works around this time as well. Nostalgia. You'll see later in this video that some people Kendrick Lamar had collaborated with prior to the Control verse had felt some type of way because they thought that they were friends with Kendrick, so it was kind of weird that they were calling him out. Pusha T, on the other hand, understood the assignment. It didn't matter that they were collaborators. He understood the essence of competition. On the night that Control dropped, he tweeted out, I hear you loud and clear, my guy. And he's later asked in an interview how he felt about the Control verse, if he even would have done his Nostalgia collaboration with Kendrick if he heard that Control verse beforehand. And Pusha emphasizes there was no problems with it. They even shot the Nostalgia music video after the Control verse came out. Pusha T pulled up to Kendrick Lamar's own hometown and kicked it with his people.
Did you guys record that prior to Control?
He recorded it prior to Control. Then Control came out.
If Control came out first, would it have changed anything?
No. Like, we just shot the video for Nostalgia. I actually went to Compton, 134th and Piru, and, you know, chill with the homies. You know, had a great time out there. Met Kendrick's family.
Nice.
His friends.
And while they were shooting that music video, Kendrick thanked Pusha T for understanding the message that he had behind that control verse. And Pusha emphasized he listens to hip hop, right? He gets the competitive angle that Kendrick was taking.
The control thing, man, like, as soon as he saw me, he said, yo, I just want to tell you, because we had to walk through the neighborhood to find where we're going to shoot it at, right? First thing he says to me is like, yo, thank you so much for just understanding and not taking the verse the wrong way. And I was like, Kendrick, you don't know I'm different, bruh. I understand. Like, I listen to rap.
And Pusha emphasizes that it's not just that he understands the essence of the verse, it's that it was a compliment if you were shouted out there. He wants a slice of your pie. He wants some of your fan base because he deems you as worthy competition. Competition that can potentially raise the bar as high as he could.
It's the sport of hip hop. And I looked at it like, man, he shouted out his peers. And he was like, yo, you know, I want to take something from your fan base, Mac Miller's fan base. You know, I want to take all of that. When is that not the mission?
Another rapper who was named on that control verse who echoed similar statements to Pusha T was Wale. He was stopped by TMZ who asked him about the verse, and he emphasized just like Pusha T, it would have been a diss if Kendrick didn't mention you on that verse. It meant you weren't doing enough to be worthy of being mentioned in that same vein, that same bracket.
I want to ask him about Kendrick's verse real quick.
I'd been offended if my name wasn't in that. So shout out to TD and shout out to Kendrick.
You think it was more respectful or more disrespectful?
I'd have felt the way if my name wasn't in the verse.
I appreciate you, Wale.
I still feel like I'm the best rapper on the planet.
Yes, sir.
Like you should too, TMZ. I think people are just taking this the wrong way. Like, he said my name, like he said a couple people's name, and he said he's the best rapper. I say I'm the best rapper every song I'm on. I just don't say nobody's name. It's like implied. Like, he just did it a different way.
Another co-signer who was also mentioned in the verse was none other than A$AP Rocky, who is an East Coast native and kind of thought it was crazy Kendrick was calling himself King of New York, but emphasized him, Kendrick, TDE, that's all family, and that control verse was not a diss. He wasn't dissing anybody, disrespecting anybody. He was emphasizing that there is a universe where we all play on the same playing field. You guys are all my competition because you're all good enough to be my competition. I just want to be better than you.
I mean, that King of New York, that's crazy, you know what I mean? I mean, honestly, though, you know, K.R.I.T and them, that's fam, yo. I think hip-hop need this shit, man, you know. It's niggas who's pissed off just because they wasn't mentioned. Rap is rap. The nigga didn't say nothing about nobody's mother. He ain't want problem. He said, these is my niggas, and I'm letting y'all know it's competition. What's the problem?
And for the final co-signer who was also mentioned in the verse, we got none other than Tyler, the Creator, who, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he wrote this response on the hip-hop forum KanyeToThe.com. And drop a comment if you were ever on KanyeToThe.com. That was a dope forum back in the day. But yeah, Tyler responded to a fan asking him, did you see where Kendrick categorized you with a lot of other talented artists he likes in Big Sean's control verse? I thought that was pretty damn cool. And Tyler said, that stuff was so sick. He sees me as competition. That's so tight. He was cool as F when I met him too. We toured together this week in Europe. So Tyler kind of took it up a notch, right? Like, it's one thing, and most rappers did acknowledge that Kendrick calling them out meant that he acknowledges them as competition. But Tyler wasn't only just acknowledging that fact, he was happy about the fact that Kendrick perceived him as competition. He took it as a compliment, far from a diss. But of course, there were plenty rappers who looked at this verse as a form of disrespect, or maybe they were just uncomfortable with the bar that Kendrick was setting himself to, with his bars, no pun intended. And we would have to categorize these rappers as the haters. And boy, were there a lot of them. Let's start off with not possibly the biggest hater to react to the control verse, but someone who was actually directly mentioned not only on Kendrick's verse, but actually had a verse of his own on the record, and that's none other than Jay Electronica. People to this day like to rewrite history and try to paint the narrative that Jay Electronica washed Kendrick Lamar on this song, but at the time, because of the impact of Kendrick Lamar's verse on that record, most people forgot Jay Electronica was on the song to begin with, but it actually started off as a Jay Electronica song. Well, a Big Sean and Jay Elect collab. When Jay Electronica was first asked about the track, he gave a couple contradicting statements. First, he emphasized that it was just him and Sean on the song. Kendrick hopped on late. Big Sean was going to use the song for his album, but when he didn't, Jay Elect was actually going to use it for his album. But of course we know how that went because Jay Elect didn't release an album for the next 7 years. But while he's explaining this, that Kendrick hopped on late, how the song was created in the first place, he also explained that he thought Kendrick's verse was actually good for hip-hop.
It was me and Big Sean, we had verses on there, and then when he told me it wasn't on his album, I was gonna use it for my album. And then he told me the day before it came out that, yo, Kendrick put a verse on it, we gonna put it out. So I was like, go ahead, you know what I'm saying? It's a good thing for hip-hop music because hip-hop has been laying dormant for a long time, you know what I'm saying? Like Kendrick Lamar, TDE, Ab-Soul, Schoolboy Q, J-Rock, Joey Bada, peace to the young.
So these sentiments seem pretty positive. However, they would take a little bit more of a negative turn a year later when he hosted a Twitter Q&A in April of 2014, and a fan asked him to rank all the verses on Control's, his own, Kendrick's, and Big Sean, who he thinks had the best verse. And of course, as any rapper should, he put himself first, but what fans thought was interesting is that not only did he rank Big Sean's verse higher than Kendrick Lamar's, but he also said that Kendrick Lamar didn't really say anything on his verse, and then proceeded to delete this tweet entirely. But the hate didn't stop there. In fact, it continued for the next 2 years. Way later in 2016, Jay Electronica would hop on a live stream on Periscope. And man, on a side note, this video is bringing back pure nostalgia between Kanye to the Periscope, the old Twitter format back when it was actually called Twitter. These were the good old days, man, but it was not such a good day for Jay Electronica when he hopped on Periscope because one of the fans commented on his live stream saying that Kendrick Lamar would body him. And Jay Electronica said, absolutely not. Are you crazy? Kendrick is my son. Kendrick knows that. We only like the Kendrick song Cartoons and Cereal. We don't like any other Kendrick Lamar music. Ironically, he's also asked about Drake and interrupts his Kendrick rant to say he likes Drake. But yeah, he was just completely going off, showing that he harbored a lot of animosity for whatever reason and refused to acknowledge that not only was Kendrick Lamar a rapper who was on the same level as him, but that Kendrick has no good music except for that one song, Cartoons and Cereal, which is a very good song.
Put some Kendrick on. Nah, that. We look. I like the one Kendrick song with Gunplay, Cartoons and Cereal, but other than that, we don't know what that talking about. Other than Cartoons and Cereal, we don't know what these talking about. Other than that, yo, we don't know what these lames is talking about. We gonna control you in a minute. We gonna control you in a minute. These lames is talking about. No, don't say Kendrick. That's still our brother. You can't say Kendrick. That's still our brother. Kendrick will body you. Look, you couldn't pay Kendrick $1 million. Kendrick wouldn't tell you. Kendrick could tell you himself he couldn't body me. Kendrick, look, Kendrick is my son. Kendrick is my baby. Kendrick wishes that he could be me. What about Wu-Tang? What about Wu-Tang Clan? Yeah, Drake is solid. Yo, who we got? Calio. Who we got? The Calio. Stop trying to put K.Dot and J against. Exactly. Who said that? Who said that? Yo, stop trying to put me and K.Dot against each other. You feel what I'm saying? That's my family. My favorite rapper from TDE is Ab-Soul. My favorite song from TDE ever, I got two. Number one is Ab-Soul, Book of Soul. The best TDE song ever. Book of Soul, Ab-Soul. And my next song, my best favorite song after that, is Cartoons and Cereal with Kendrick and Gunplay, but because of Gunplay. Not that I love Kendrick though, but we love Cartoons and Cereal because of Gunplay. Yeah, do we listen to Drake? Yo, we f with Drake. Don't get us wrong. Drake is in Toronto now. We f with Toronto. Drake grew up in the Jewish neighborhood with the Hebrew school and all that, had a bar mitzvah, Backstreet Boys and all that, but we still f with Drake because Drake made good music, so we f with Drake.
So I didn't realize after Control came out, it literally became a meme that Jay Electronica's verse was so overlooked on that song because of what Kendrick did on it. So this is probably why Jay Electronica feels the way that he felt. I mean, you had tweets like this. This is on the night that Control came out. They were saying Jay Electronica's verse is like when you had to do a presentation in class and the person before you had a detailed 35-slide PowerPoint. I mean, Kendrick was calling out like 35 names, right? It's kind of hard to listen to any other verse on the same song that Kendrick just put on that type of spectacle on, right? But Jay Electronica decided to try and redeem himself by dropping a song of his own where he addresses the comments he made on that Periscope live. The song is called The Curse of Mayweather. Came out a couple days after that Periscope live stream. And he addresses the memes they made after the Control verse dropped. He addressed the fact that, you know, Kendrick was trying to say he was outdoing the competition and Jay Electronica was the competition. And he emphasizes his greatness, essentially, saying, "This is blasphemy. I gave that little cockroach life and he blasted me. People made all those memes and they laughed at me. It's World War III, the catastrophe. Watch the Throne. How you going to compare a king to a gnome? How you going to compare Django Fett to the clones? The game can celebrate today because daddy's home." Remember, he called Kendrick Lamar his son on that live stream when he was asked how he feels about Kendrick's music. Then he continues rapping about the accomplishments that Kendrick has received that Jay Electronica probably hasn't, right? And he's doing this from a perspective of a fan, rapping, "He's got 11 Grammy nominations, y'all not equal." Then he goes back to his own perspective, saying, "Man, F those white people. My grandma died at 82, scrubbing floors, and people still running around begging for awards? Is he the Jedi or is he the Sith? Is he Neo in the Matrix or Mr. Smith? I might be on Periscope, getting pissed, talking reckless, contemplating all-out war with Fifth," because he was also going at 50 Cent on Periscope. Now, fans would theorize that a couple months later, Kendrick Lamar would reply to these shots by Jay Electronica on his song Untitled 7. Cause he rapped, "You guys fear me like y'all fear God. You sound frantic, I hear panic in your voice. Just know the mechanics of making your choice in writing your bars. Before you poke out your chest, loosen your bra. Before you step out of line and dance with the star, I can never end a career if it never start." Seems like a reference to JLX because, of course, he had huge hype with, Exhibit A, Exhibit C, those tracks that released in around, I believe, 2010. But then he never really followed up on the hype. He never dropped like a full-fledged body of work to capitalize off the moment. Kendrick here is emphasizing that he can't go back and forth with someone and try to lyrically destroy someone who never really had a career in the first place. But Terrence Martin, a close collaborator with Kendrick, said that this Untitled 7 song had been recorded years before JLX started going at him. But both Kendrick and Dave Free would directly respond to JLX over the next few years. Dave Free directly responding to Jay Electronica's Periscope livestream saying, "Damn, you're still mad about Control?" JLX would respond to him saying, "Watch your mouth, stay off the swine and get knowledge of self. Your man is whack. Don't make me crumble your whole thing." And I couldn't find any screenshots, but apparently in April of 2016, Jay Electronica would apologize to Kendrick and TDE on Twitter, asking them to forgive his past transgressions. And then in September of 2023, a leaked alternative version of Kendrick Lamar's 2017 song Element had leaked online, where he was going at a slew of rappers, calling them out again by name, the same way he did on the Control verse, the same way he did on his Monster freestyle. Maybe that leaked Element record is a video for another day. Drop a comment if you want that. But Kendrick specifically had bars for Big Sean, Drake, French Montana, and Jay Electronica on that record. Specifically rapping at Jay Electronica saying, "JLX tried to throw silences on my Grammy night, another dead prophet hoping that God will give him life." Because, of course, on Jay Electronica's Kendrick diss song, The Curse of Mayweather, he was rapping from a fan's perspective who was, comparing JLX's accomplishments to Kendrick's, saying, "Oh, but Kendrick has 11 Grammy nominations." Kendrick here is saying he was trying to throw silences on my Grammy night, but he's another dead prophet. His message failed to reach the masses. And again, he also had some bars for Big Sean, so stay tuned later in the video. We'll kind of review that a little bit. Of course, Control was Big Sean's song, so you already know he had a little something to say about it. But this is the last time Kendrick Lamar would entertain Jay Electronica, and again, this is on a leaked verse. It was an alternate version of his Element song from 2017 that leaked all the way in 2023. Jay Electronica, throughout the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, would seemingly take Drake's side by sharing a bunch of his music in May of 2024, right at the heat of Kendrick and Drake's battle. But that was all the hate that we got from Mr. Electronica regarding this Control verse. It all really stemmed back to the fact that he felt overshadowed on that song. It wasn't even the fact that Kendrick called him out by name on it. And another rapper who seemingly took heed to the large amount of attention and praise that this Control verse garnered was none other than a highly praised rapper himself, Lupe Fiasco. He was, in my opinion, the biggest hater of this Control verse. The day after it dropped, he went on a Twitter rampage. He tweeted out, "Dear y'all know y'all easily impressed. The bar is so low you need a shovel to get at it. Let's address it before it gets out of hand. I really don't want to, but F it. We all rap. Some of us just rap to rap, but others of us rap. So when someone who raps about raps and rappers who rap hear the rappers rap about rap, but it's just rap, rappers be like, really?" I'll put it to you like this. K.R.I.T is not a top-tier lyricist to me, and my standards when it comes to punchlines and bars. His overall lyrics are good, his story's phenomenal, but punchline, entendre, lyrically, I don't see it. I've never been destroyed. Also, the only issue that the world thinks I have with K.R.I.T, and I actually do, is that I think his Control verse was whack and super overhyped to be a verse claiming you are the best rapper. It was very weird. I was told it was just bait, but still, just because they didn't speak to you doesn't mean they didn't speak. Just because I don't rank K.R.I.T on par with what I consider top tier doesn't mean you don't have to either, or other folks as well. It's just my opinion. Trust, I'm much harder on myself. My final opinion on rap in public is this. A$AP Rock is the best rapper in the world right now, the definition of top tier in all categories, and you should all study him and step your stuff up, even me. This concludes my opinion on rap forever. He would then go on to rap from the perspective of other rappers offering their rebuttal to Kendrick's Control verse. He starts off with Eminem saying, Eminem is a winner sinner, Eminem's skin is getting no thinner, even with this dinner of M&Ms and malt liquor, etc., etc. He continues, don't get it confused, I'm really a beast with this. Don't let this MTV XXL popularity contest gas you to think otherwise. Because if you guys didn't know, in that same year Kendrick dropped Control, he was also named the hottest MC by MTV on their list of hottest MCs of the year. He continues rapping from Kendrick Lamar's perspective, saying, what rhymes with Kendrick hologramming? Hello Grammys. With no money, all in my image, my extended player had innovators imitating my entrance. Someone asks Lupe about MF Doom. He says, the real king low key. Rappers who really rap, no. My pleasure. He continues rapping from the perspective of other rappers, starting with Nicki Minaj saying, I ain't got time for lames, keep it B, I'm in a rush, I ain't got time for change, you way high and it's no time for lanes. Then Wale, would trip but making money's the new agenda, to see it would do him wonders and make your summer the new December. Then Hove, I'm Boston my guy, your boy George, Blackie Bulger homie, you're just a vulture sitting on one of my sculptures. Then you got Lil Wayne. B, I don't care, I'm rich, I don't care, long hair king of this stuff, Lurch, show these guys out, I'm the king in this B. Then Pusha T. Yeah, so many crowns going around don't mean a effing thing, so I sold my crown stocks and got into puppet strings. Then Tyler. Excuse the heads, I was just skull effing to some icorn, odd future SWAT team swinging tennis rackets in a fly storm. Then Rick Ross. Big waist, I ain't after the belt, I'm after the wealth, so the real Rick Ross renamed himself after myself. Then 2 Chainz. 2 Chainz got a new chain, piece on it say 2 chains. So I bought 2, so when you see me walk through you see 2 chains in 2 chains that say 2 chains. Sees on Twitter the night after Control, inventing these responses that these other big rappers in the game would have to Kendrick's Control verse, I'm assuming. Now, pause a little bit. As I'm editing and recording this video, I realized there's a little mistake here. So all those tweets I just read out to you guys, those were on the day after Control dropped. But the initial tweets I read where Lupe was talking about, everyone thinks I have this problem with the Control verse, and I do because it was whack, it was overhyped, it was a verse claiming you're the best rapper, but it was a whack verse. Those tweets were actually from 2018, 5 years later, because a fan had tweeted out to Lupe saying that Kendrick's song Look Out for Detox destroys any Lupe Fiasco tracks. Their little back and forth, it was kind of more one-sided on Lupe's end, but it had spanned for a couple years. It didn't escalate crazy or anything, but there were little things like Lupe Fiasco having an all-black album cover for his 2012 album Food and Liquor 2, and then 5 years later, Kendrick Lamar released the single All the Stars with SZA, and the album cover for that song was also just an all-black square. Lupe had tweeted out that that's a little too close for comfort, implying Kendrick was biting him. There were a couple other little subs, but Lupe has acknowledged that there are no problems between him and Kendrick Lamar. But at the time, right after the Control verse, Lupe did actually drop a response record titled SLR2. After that whole tweeting spree, Lupe released this song just 2 days after Control came out on August 14th, 2013. Now drop a comment, I could do a whole video on the back and forth between Lupe and Kendrick and break down this song in its entirety, but that'd be way too long for this video in particular, so we'll look at the most direct bar that Lupe had for Kendrick on this song. He rapped, "My left foot is in LA, but my right foot is in Spain." That's obviously a reference to Kendrick's hometown of LA, but he's also saying that he's international with it, right? His music is making an impact overseas, out in Spain. And remember the era we're in, right? This is just less than a year after Kendrick Lamar released Good Kid, Mad City. He hadn't really had that massive global impact just yet. Meanwhile, Lupe Fiasco was already 4 or 5 albums deep. He had worldwide hits, tours, etc. He's claiming that he's reaching Kendrick Lamar's home turf of LA, but also spanning far and wide beyond the reach that Kendrick Lamar has had at that point in time. He continues rapping. Now, we all heard what he said, but what he said means we dead, and that stuff is insane. He's so crazy, look at that little baby. Again, Kendrick was really just one major album into his career, so all these guys, Jay Electronica, Lupe, they're trying to son Kendrick, right? JLec literally calling Kendrick his son, Lupe calling him a baby, and Lupe emphasizes Kendrick is nowhere near the level he compares himself to, rapping, my guy, you're not Nas, you're not Jay, you will respect me, you will reject me, but I've done so much, no matter how far you go, you will reflect me. And while I respect Lupe Fiasco for responding to the Control verse with a verse of his own, he wasn't the only rapper to do so. And that's where we get into the next group of reactors to the Control verse, the responders. Of course, Control garnered a slew of responses from dozens of different rappers. Some who were upset at the King of New York bar, some who were upset they weren't or were mentioned in that slew of names Kendrick dropped at the end of the verse. But one rapper who was mad at both those aspects was a young up-and-comer by the name of Joey Badman. I'm not sure if I could say his actual name on YouTube. I feel like every time I do, the video kind of gets shadow banned. So thank you, YouTube, for all your censorship. We're going to go ahead and call him Joey Badman. Now, Joey Badman was fresh off the release of his classic mixtape 1999. He was a newcomer. I believe he was like 17 at the time the Control dropped, but he felt like he was worthy of being mentioned in that verse amongst all of Kendrick's competition in that generation. And he was a little upset, being an East Coast native, that Kendrick called himself the King of New York. So he put out his own record called Illuminati 2, where he rapped, be more specific next time you're shouting loud, amigo. I'm not the star, in fact I plan it all. F with the media, right? This is a fire bar. Please don't leave your comment if you're not up to par. No names putting you in a verse, that's too far. You're mundane, can't obtain the knowledge in my brain. My set told me light you up, so this is that propane. It's Nathan, all I gotta do is split a flame. No escaping, you're in a swimming pool of champagne. Of course, in reference to Kendrick Lamar's hit song at the time, Swimming Pools. He continues, you set yourself up for that one, man. The King of New York? Ha, we ain't just gonna let that one hang. Last guy got dethroned, and you ain't from my zone. The rest of the real guys is dead and gone. When he references the last guy that got dethroned, Joey's probably talking about his small beef with Lil B. And he continues on the next verse rapping, I heard they were looking for war, but they're not declaring me? I'm well aware, New York, not Delaware. I'm the real king fella here. You're more like the Prince of Bel-Air. But Joey would clarify that there was no hate coming from his end. This was just competition. He's essentially just stating here, you can't be the King of New York. I'm here. And if you're looking for war, why wouldn't you say my name? But he did tweet out a day after the Control verse dropped saying, how can y'all think I'm hating on Kendrick right now? Much respect to him for bodying everybody. This day marks a new rap game. Know that. Another rapper who was happy with the sentiment of the verse but not so pleased with Kendrick declaring himself the King of New York was Joe Budden, who released his own freestyle to Control called Lost Control, where he rapped, I'm on my stuff today. You the King of New York? You might as well have spit on Biggie grave. Couldn't let that slip away. And plenty of rappers like Joe Budden had spit a freestyle over the Control beat in response to Kendrick Lamar. Another notable one was Papoose, who started his freestyle off rapping, tell Kendrick and TDE they need to lay off the PCP. Far from the king, this the city of BDP. You'll never be a real West Coast artist like Eazy-E. You're a effing joke, we laugh at you, he he he. Later in the song, he goes at both Kendrick, Drake, and Kanye West, rapping, Kendrick, Kanye, and Drake, they all act feminine. Wear a lot of clothes you usually see women in, so the mainstream America finds it interesting. Push them to the forefront, their positioning. You never made it because you bring in lyrics in. Singing like a lady, you get away with murder, you George Zimmerman. Good Kid, Mad City, you know nothing about the trap. On your album cover, you sat on another man's lap. Another rapper aiming at Kendrick rapping on the Control beat was Joel Ortiz, who rapped, I'm listening, you're the King of New York? Little homie, you ain't the King of New York, you're the next thing on my fork. When we met, you said, it's an honor, man, the Yawa can spit. Maybe that's why you left me out of this stuff. Maybe that's why the slaughterhouse ain't get dissed. Or maybe I'm not on your radar. You feel you ain't gotta acknowledge my click. Either way, I personal train this beat, it gotta get ripped. You rich rappers can't respond with all the dollars you get. Gangster rappers can't retaliate with hollows and clips, and you fashion rappers wear the kind of jeans that hardly get zipped. It's funny, a lot of these responses were chirping Kendrick for his fashion choices, and you have to remember again the era that this song and all these responses were released in, right? This was right after Kanye did his Yeezus album, where he was going on those interviews ranting about his frustrations of being blackballed or not properly let into the fashion industry. He was more focused on clothes than he was music, even compromising the structure of the Yeezus album and the overall sound to make you feel the chaotic headspace he was in. He was trying to pivot into another industry and wasn't being allowed in at the time. So a lot of these New York artists, they're kind of putting Kendrick in that same crop. These mainstream rappers who aren't gangsters, dress feminine, as they put it. You also had the A$AP Rockies of the time who, of course, were also highly into fashion, right? There was this whole wave of rappers really putting that emphasis and their intention onto fashion. And of course, these more hardcore MCs who really placed the emphasis on lyricism, on bars, like a Papoose or a Joel Ortiz, they weren't necessarily feeling the evolution of where mainstream hip-hop was going. Another rapper who I think flipped the whole Control beat, did his own freestyle to it, but approached it in a really dope way was King Los, who, just like Kendrick, called out all those 12 MCs by name, all these leaders of the new school from J. Cole to Pusha T, Drake, Mac Miller, etc. Except instead of, like Kendrick did, pretty much emphasizing that he wanted to unalive them all, lyrically, King Los had a positive thing to say about each and every one of them. He rapped, "Kendrick, I think you're a genius. J. Cole got these guys worried. Big K.R.I.T is a Southern killer. Wale a visionary. Pusha been pushing so long, he truly defines a hustler. Meek did his time like a G, came back home and shined on them suckers. A$AP mastered the facets of fashion, snatching the essence of branding his whole fam and a no man demanding a presence. This guy Drake, nice on the mic and act. So many hits, he effed around and brought light skin back. And Big Sean, you did it, you really did it, no BSing. You put the D on, I could see the future, no Warwick. Get it? Dionne Warwick, I went to war with. Critics like Jay Alec, I let him see. My exhibit, get it? Exhibit C. I exquisitely make a sieg down to Tyler, my future's odd. I salute you, dog, Mac Miller, young white boy, track killer. Gotta feel that, I think real rap's back. Now another rapper who got called out by name on the Control verse was Meek Mill, and he had a response as well. He had a really dope flip of Dr. Dre's Forgot About Dre beat on his freestyle Ooh Kill 'Em, where he was responding directly to Kendrick Lamar. He said, I do it for the streets, you do it for the guys with the backpack. I do it for the people on the corner, trying to make a meal ticket with a crack pack. Hold up, wait a minute, let me backtrack. Hove gave you 24, let you have that. That's because Hove actually hopped on the Beat Don't Kill My Vibe remix for Kendrick Lamar right after Good Kid Mad City. Hove gave Kendrick a 24. A lot of people consider Hove the king of New York, so Meek Mill references that saying, man, you're claiming you're the king of New York? What the F wrong with you, my guy? Step back. 100 shots, aim them straight at your snap cap. Everybody want the crown, so I snatch that. Heard your gun go do-do-do-do, well my gun go blat 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 blat. Because of course Kendrick has made firearm sounds on his song that go do-do-do-do-do. Then he continues rapping, what the F wrong with him? Like, I'm really sick of you guys. You've been killing the game for like a year and some change, and you feeling yourself, so I'm killing you guys. Like, ooh, kill him. Of course, again, emphasizing the fact that Kendrick had only been in the game for about a year at the point that he released Control. That was a highly confident statement to make after just one massive album within the mainstream. It's kind of crazy to think that before Good Kid Mad City, Meek Mill low-key had a bigger buzz than Kendrick Lamar, if we're talking a numbers perspective. He was crashing sites like DatPiff, My Mixtapes. I'm sure you guys remember those days, but we gotta move on, all right? We gotta move on to the next category of responders or reactors to the Control verse, and that would be the category of rappers who were confused. Now, some of these rappers actually responded with a record of their own. Some of them responded in interviews. We're going to cover them all and understand why they were confused, all right? So the first one being Nicki Minaj. Now, Nicki Minaj had no reason not to be on that list that Kendrick dropped. This is 2013. She already went on a monstrous feature run, no pun intended. She's got like 2 or 3 platinum albums at this point, multiple #1 singles. She can out-rap a lot of your favorite rappers. Ignore her antics today. When you're talking 2013, who are the biggest and best rappers in the game at the time, Nicki Minaj had no reason to be left off that list. So she did an interview in November of 2013, a couple months after the verse was released, with The Breakfast Club, where Charlamagne asked her how she felt about being left off. And I'm going to try to play you guys the clip if we don't get copyrighted, but I'll read you what she said regardless, because she didn't really have a clear-cut answer, but I think her answer was pretty good. She said, I'm probably in the top 5 mother effers that he did mention on that song. So go and do your research. But I also feel like maybe he's one of those respectful gentlemen that probably felt like, I don't want to say a female's name. Or maybe he just don't think the kid is ill. But the kid know that the kid is ill. So I don't need to be on nobody's D. I'm the queen and the king of New York. Let me tell you why. Platinum albums, plural, #1 in 5 countries. Name a rapper that has gone #1 in Japan.
Did you feel away when Kendrick didn't mention your name in that Control verse?
Probably in the top 5 if he did mention, so
Yeah.
going through your I also feel like maybe he's one of those like respectful gentlemen that probably wanted to feel like, I don't want to say a female's name. Or maybe he just don't think the kid is ill, but the kid know the kid is ill, so I'm the queen of New York, I'm the king of New York. Let me tell you why. When you got an album that go #1 in Japan and in the UK and Australia and America at the same time in Canada, then you can speak my name.
And Nicki did tweet out after saying, LOL, I'm going to post the full interview. It was all in fun. For the record, Hove is the king of NY in my eyes. Which is kind of funny to see, after the way she's been talking about Jay-Z on Twitter over 10 years later. But yeah, just like Nicki Minaj, I was also confused as to why she wasn't mentioned on the song. But I think she chopped it up pretty well. Now, someone who was mentioned on the song, who in my opinion was Kendrick's probably closest competition at the time, was none other than J. Cole. If you guys have been keeping up with the channel, we've done a ton of videos explaining how J. Cole has himself explained that he felt a little weird after his debut album, which he personally felt wasn't up to par with what he wanted to deliver to the world, and then seeing the reaction to his music early on versus Kendrick's music. Kendrick came right out the gate with a classic album in Good Kid, Mad City. It took J. Cole a little while to catch up, even though he was the one who blew up about 1.5 years before Kendrick. So it was kind of weird, right? It was almost like your little brother outlapping you, even though he started after you. And keep in mind, by the time Control comes out, J. Cole is already on his 3rd album. He just released his 2nd. So he probably feels a little weird thinking like, I got the numbers, I got the projects to back up me being the best right now. But all the accolades, all the attention, it's all going to Kendrick, right? He's named MTV's hottest MC of the year that year, even though J. Cole put out a project that year. He drops his Control verse. No one is talking about that Born Sinner album. They're talking about that Control verse. So how did J. Cole react? Well, in my opinion, with a little bit of confusion. He definitely wasn't hating. On the night that the song came out, J. Cole tweeted out, Kendrick Lamar is the truth, but y'all gotta read between the lines. He didn't diss anybody he mentioned. He dissed everybody that he didn't mention. But a couple months later, J. Cole was featured on the TKO remix by Justin Timberlake, where he reflected on how he felt hearing that Control verse for the first time. He's reflecting on a relationship that went wrong, rapping, I thought you were a down B, till I found that stuff a couple days ago. I was home alone, next thing I know, that long verse from a song called Control was on. The room got nearer, the tune got clearer, that's when I seen that stuff playing on your phone. Girl, what is that, a ringtone? Ah, not you too. Man, the hype done got you too. Everybody and their mamas gassed. Even my mama asked what I'm gonna do. Decisions. In case this is war, then I load up on all ammunition. If a guy want problems, my trigger's on auto. I'll make sure that nobody miss him. Now pack up your stuff. You don't believe me? I don't need you. I got me. Same guy moved to NYC. Got a record deal and a college degree. 2 gold plaques. I produced all the tracks and I never even lean on Jay-Z. After all that achievement, real guy never even went and got his teeth fixed. Now you try to play me? You effing trying to play me? I'd knock your butt out. So I don't put him in the responder category. I put J. Cole in the confused category because you could hear it by this verse, right? He doesn't know how to react, right? Is this war? Do I got to load up on the ammunition? Or is this competition? My mom's asking me how I'm going to react to this. My girl is playing it on her ringtone. The whole world is gassed up. Yes, on Twitter, J. Cole is emphasizing that if Kendrick didn't mention you, then that means he's dissing you. But on this track, he's kind of questioning, like, was Kendrick dissing me? Is this really just competition, or is this something more serious? Is he trying to take me down, right? And what's funny is, aside from the Black Friday remixes that Kendrick and Cole did about 1 year later when both of them hopped on each other's beats to freestyle over, J. Cole rapped on the All Right beat, and then Kendrick rapped on the Tale of Two Cities beat, and everyone really said that Kendrick washed J. Cole on that. They never collaborated again. After that Control verse and those Black Friday remixes where everybody said Cole got washed by Kendrick, name me another time that they collaborated on a track. The next thing we get is 7 Minute Drill, and you guys know how that went, right? It was deleted after a few days. So it seemed like even when J. Cole did eventually load up on that ammunition, he was still confused and ended up deleting his statement to the world on Kendrick Lamar. And I think from that whole time between Control and 7 Minute Drill, J. Cole didn't really know if it was love or hate. Now, the next person on the confused list is someone who wasn't necessarily confused on whether or not Kendrick was dissing him or shouting him out. This rapper seemed to understand the message Kendrick was trying to send, and that this was all competition. Everybody was trying to level up for the sake of hip-hop. What this guy was confused about was why the audience was reacting to Control the way they were. This was none other than Big K.R.I.T, who had put out a slew of classic mixtapes in the early 2010s and, in my opinion, never got the true recognition he deserved. He was a real MC, through in and through out, if that's the expression. I don't think it is, but definitely had the bars and the skill set to back up being mentioned on that Control verse. The problem Big K.R.I.T had is the fact that he was from the South, and a lot of rappers from the South were kind of typecast in this box of being, more on the melody-driven side, not necessarily being so lyrically dense, if that's an expression, right? Look at the Gucci Manes, Young Jeezy, T.I. Like, yes, they can spit, but they're more known for their heavy-hitting delivery than they are for their introspective messaging. And Big K.R.I.T never really fit into that box, right? He was always more on the lyrical side. So when he heard the response to Control, where the fans, the world was kind of wondering, like, were MCs going to now step their game up? Were they going to be rapping on the level Kendrick was at, to the bar he was trying to set? Big K.R.I.T is basically telling the world, like, I've been rapping like this, but you guys didn't want to hear it. You wanted to hear the trap, the melody, the bass. Hip-hop for the past few years has been all about the partying, the club bangers, etc. So when I say Big K.R.I.T was confused, he was more confused as to why fans were now expecting bars when he's been delivering bars for the last few years and has been overlooked for never compromising his message to appeal to a wider audience. He released the track Mount Olympus, which was a response to Control, but more a response to the people who were expecting more from him when he's been delivering what they were asking for after Control this entire time. He rapped on the hook. Now they want to hear a country guy rap. 5 albums in, I swear a country guy snapped. Thought they wanted trap, thought they wanted bass, thought they wanted Molly, thought they wanted drank, thought they wanted gold, thought they wanted shine, thought they wanted radio. Make up your mind. Right? He's telling the fans, I thought you wanted me to make the radio hits. I've been snapping on 5 albums straight. And now you want to hear me rap because Kendrick came out and said my name and he was rapping? I've been rapping, so I'm confused. Have you guys just been sleeping on me? Or are we facing a reset right now where all of a sudden now everybody wants to hear me rap? Anyways, he continues on the verse saying, all this attention, I don't even know what I might do with it. That Control beat is like an ugly girl that everybody done effed raw. Maybe you hit it. Oh man, I'm more concerned why people have been texting my cell, calling my phone, asking me about this Kendrick stuff that he ain't even really diss me on. I ain't drawn to all this propaganda. Rap stuff about as real as Santa. Now I'm lyrical all of a sudden? Well, last year they claimed they didn't understand me. And later in the verse, he emphasizes that the South always gets overlooked, right? Remember back at the 95 Source Awards when Andre 3000 got on stage to accept his award and said the South had something to say, and he was booed. It's usually the East Coast and West Coast rappers that people turn to for more lyrically charged music, like I mentioned before. So, Big K.R.I.T emphasizes here, frustrated, rap battling ain't never got me out of no public housing. You're telling me I can be the king of hip-hop and they wouldn't give it to Andre 3000? Please, this award ain't got stuff to do with us. God could physically come down and say he the greatest, he's my favorite, y'all should listen to him, he has potential to outlive the heat wave that I'ma send through this mother effer and rebuild for a whole nother culture, and that still wouldn't be enough. So F these haters and F these HOESs, damn right, I still mean that. And I think by far this is my favorite response out of any to the Control verse, because Big K.R.I.T poses a bigger question, right? You only care to hear me rap now that there's some drama involved? Or is there a genuine desire to hear my message and open your ears up on a deeper level? I think that question can still be posed today in 2025. Now we got our final rapper on the confused list, which was not just a rapper that Kendrick Lamar called out by name on the song, but in fact another rapper who was featured on the song. In fact, this was his song long before Kendrick Lamar made it his own, and that's none other than Big Sean. Sean Don, initially, he meant to put this song on his album, Hall of Fame. The song was mysteriously missing when the project released. Sean chalked it up to sample clearance issues. They couldn't get the sample cleared. Now, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe, because I did a whole breakdown of the beef between Kendrick and Big Sean about a year ago, and maybe I'll leave that in the description here so you guys can see, the full back and forth that really stemmed from this verse. But I do think that it was either Kendrick on the Heart Part 4 or Big Sean on a separate song where they used the same sample from the Control verse and they ended up releasing it on streaming platforms. Do you guys get why that's kind of substantial? It's kind of like a little subliminal to say, hey, Big Sean, at the beginning you were talking about the reason why Control wasn't on your album is because of sample clearance issues, but then here comes this other song that had no problem getting cleared and getting onto streaming platforms. So obviously the whole sample clearance issue wasn't really an issue, it was kind of an excuse. But Sean was positive about the song, right? Obviously, you know, at the beginning, he had to approve of what Kendrick did on there, because if not, it was his damn song. He just wouldn't have released it. And like we saw before in this video, Kendrick was actually debating redoing his whole verse. But he decided not to, and Sean decided to put it out anyways. Sean does an interview a couple days after the verse comes out. He's praising the verse and even acknowledges that Kendrick outshined him on the song. He says it happens on every song, right? Every posse cut. Someone is going to outshine the other. So he admits defeat. Unlike Jay Electronica, Big Sean admits that Kendrick stole the show on this Control record.
Do you think that he outshined you at all, Sean, on the song?
Yeah, I think that name dropping really took it over the top for sure. Hey, like I said, when 3 rappers hop on the song, whether it's Click, whether it's All Me, whether it's Control, somebody's always gonna shine. So it just is what it is, man. I love my verse, and I think I have some great quotables in there. And it's hip hop. We all having fun, man.
Now, there are probably like 12 different interviews where Big Sean is asked about this song, obviously, because he's mentioned in it, because it's his actual record, because he didn't end up putting it on his album, right? I'm not going to play you guys every single clip of Big Sean talking about Control. You're just going to have to believe me when I say he was confused, all right? He was confused on who had the best verse off the song, if the song was actually beneficial for him, if it was beneficial for hip-hop, if he felt disrespected by it, if he didn't. Who didn't clear the song? Why didn't it end up on his project? He was confused. Rightfully so. I mean, you get this behemoth of a verse on your own song, completely overshadowing not just your verse on the song, but really your entire album. Because Big Sean's album came out about a week after this song released. And, I mean, Hall of Fame by Big Sean. Do you guys even remember it? Not to disrespect him, I think he had some amazing moments of his own after this song and after that album was released, but it's no doubt controlled hip-hop for that time period and completely overshadowed everything Big Sean had going on at the time. I showed you guys how initially he said that Kendrick, you know, maybe didn't have the best verse, but definitely outshined everybody else on the record. But a couple weeks later, he was asked about it again. He emphasized he thought the song was good for hip-hop, but this time he said he had the best verse.
I was the one who orchestrated the whole thing and put it out, so I knew it was all in good sport.
Was Drake out of line to get upset about that?
Well, nah, you know, Drake's his own person, so I can't say what's out of line and what isn't.
Are you pissed off that that overshadowed a good song?
Not at all. Even when I was talking with Drake, and Drake was like, man, your verse on Control was like...
It was solid.
I think it was better than solid. I think it was really good.
Better than Kendrick's?
Yeah, I like my verse better than Kendrick's.
And that's cool, you should think you had the best verse. But remember how I told you guys earlier, Big Sean initially stated that the song didn't get onto his album because of sample issues. Well, by 2015, he had a bit of a different answer as to why the song wasn't on his project in 2013. He said, looking back on it, it was a different vibe than my album. There's a lot of negativity on that song, and I don't F with negative stuff. People love drama, they love the BS. I knew when Kendrick did that name dropping that it was just going to set it off, and I could see why people gravitated towards that verse for that reason. I respect him for thinking of that. I never want to shade anybody. I would have been a hating guy if I cut out his verse, or if I didn't put the song out. So he puts the song out, but not on his album. Initially, it's because of sample issues, but then he's asked again, and he says he doesn't F with the negativity and the drama. Which one is it, right? There's a lot of flip-flop and a lot of confusion. Like I mentioned, I have a whole video, I'll leave it in the description, breaking down Kendrick's beef with Big Sean that transpired after these comments, after the Control verse. I think the confusion was similar to J. Cole, where Big Sean, A, felt like maybe this competition was a little too serious for him, but also felt like Kendrick was his friend, someone he considered a peer and someone he respected. So there was no hate necessarily, but a lot of people were questioning him about the verse, trying to stir up some drama, and eventually it may have gotten to his head on whether or not he should have handled the situation a little more seriously, right? Maybe come with some more aggressive bars. And he finally did on a song called No More Interviews in, I believe, 2017, which many people took as a diss to Kendrick Lamar because Big Sean was talking about, I'm not feeling the guy that you're calling the savior of rap who sounds like he's just rapping fast like one big asthma attack, because of course Kendrick was rapping really fast on that Control verse. Big Sean would emphasize that that song, No More Interviews, wasn't a diss at Kendrick Lamar. This was all some big misunderstanding. He would go on to emphasize for years to come that he still felt like he wasn't outshined on Control. And like I mentioned before, we had that leaked version of the Element song that Kendrick recorded in 2017, but it was leaked in 2023. And where he takes shots at Jay Electronica, he also takes shots even more seriously at Big Sean. Probably a response to Big Sean's No More Interviews record, which came out in 2017. So Kendrick rapped, Big Sean keeps sneak dissing, I let him slide. I think your false confidence got you inspired. I can't make them respect you, baby, it's not my job. You're finally famous for who you date, not how you rhyme. And that's because Big Sean's first album and his mixtape series was called Finally Famous, and Big Sean was known for dating some very public figures at the time. Kendrick is saying he's more famous for who he dates than his actual albums and his music. Kendrick continued, cute raps, get your puberty up, then make you a classic album before you come at us. Then he has a little kind of not really double entendre, but the way he's pronouncing the next few bars, you don't know if he's taking shots at Drake or if he's referencing Drake and Meek Mill's beef to take aim at Big Sean, because he says Drake and Meek Mill's beef might have you gassed up, but I'm a whole different beast, I really F you up. And it's possible he was saying to Big Sean, like, hey, that whole Drake and Meek Mill beef that popped off, that might have you gassed up thinking that you could now come at me, but I'm a whole other beast, I'll really F you up. Or maybe he's going at Drake saying, hey, Drake, your Meek Mill beef that you won might have you gassed up, but I'm a whole other animal, I'll F you up. And remember, right before Damn, his 2017 album was released, Kendrick put out The Heart Part 4, where he sent a warning shot, which many people believe was aimed at both Drake and Big Sean, where he said, say my name and I promise you'll see Candyman. And then you get this leaked version of Element, which was supposed to be on Damn, where he's taking shots at both of them. It's interesting that he ended up holding back at that point in time. But Big Sean, years later, would again emphasize and clarify there was no beef between him and Kendrick or him and TDE, but he would state for a final time that the reason Control was not on his album wasn't because of a sample clearance issue or the fact that there was negativity in the verse and he didn't want drama on his album, but it was actually because Kendrick's team over at TDE hadn't cleared the song. They didn't want it on the project.
Like, the reason it wasn't on my album is because they didn't clear it.
TDE didn't clear it?
Yeah, because of all the controversy and drama it amassed, I assume, or, you know.
It was already out, though, so what's it?
That was what I'm saying. I'm like, we agreed to do the song, put it out. I'm like, put it on my album. They like, oh, no, you know, it was, you know. I never really got a full explanation of why that didn't, it just never got cleared, but it wasn't like I didn't clear it.
So it's interesting, right? We get 3 different reasons from Big Sean throughout the years as to why that Control verse never made it onto his project. And while he co-signed what Kendrick did on there, he couldn't really seem to give a clear answer on whether or not he truly felt like he was outshined or if people were just caught up in the drama and the hype. And as a result, and a lack of communication, that would lead to a little bit of a subliminal war between him and Kendrick Lamar, which would capitulate with that leaked Element verse. But after that, it seemed like things died down and both of them have a mutual respect for each other. And that's why I would label Big Sean in the confused category, right? He didn't really know how to react to that threat of competition on that Control verse. But ultimately, their chapter did end in a positive note. I can't say the same for the final rapper on this list, which is going to be categorized under, you guessed it, The Clown Show. This is none other than La Brianna, the Marilyn Monroe ho, and you could really date back their long-standing subliminal war, which escalated in 2024 when they had their full-on rap beef, to this verse right here, the Control verse. And that's why, even though we just reviewed a slew of rappers who responded to this verse, some happy, some weren't, by far the reason why this verse lives on today with the impact that it has is because of the way that Drake reacted and the series of events that transpired because of his crybaby clown show reaction. Now, as I'm recording this part of the video, I noticed that Jeremy Hecht, shout out to Jeremy Hecht, another dope white Canadian content creator, put out a really dope piece just yesterday on why he thinks Kendrick Lamar recorded Control. And I think it lays some important context into what was going on at the time and why Kendrick felt the need to really step up and prove he was the best on this verse. And that's because, again, remember, Kendrick was named the best MC of the year by MTV that year. Drake, I believe, was placed at number 3 on that list. A couple days after that MTV list released, Drake released the song 5 a.m. in Toronto, where he said, I made Forbes list. F your list. Everything's looking gorgeous. He didn't care about no list. And of course, just a year prior, before Kendrick dropped Good Kid, Mad City, he brought Kendrick Lamar out on his Club Paradise tour. He believed in Kendrick early on. He saw the potential. Kendrick was even on Drake's Take Care album. So Drake was not very happy when he was called out by name on that Control verse. He was the only rapper named on that track that didn't respond with a track of his own, but instead crying in interviews. Yes, Big Sean didn't respond with a track of his own either, but he kept it positive in interviews, right? Drake most definitely didn't. You guys could see that for the most part, almost every rapper we reviewed in this video pretty much understood the assignment when it came to what Kendrick Lamar did on that Control verse. They understood what it was for hip-hop, what Kendrick was trying to say, and how, like J. Cole said, it wasn't a diss, if he mentioned you, it was a diss if he didn't. Drake had different ideas and plans. He was planning to release his album Nothing Was the Same in September of 2023, about a month after Kendrick Lamar released Control. Now, you guys questioned today why Drake doesn't sit down with hip-hop journalists to do interviews, and I attribute it directly to how he was questioned after that Control verse came out. See, way back then in 2013, I'm bringing you guys on a little nostalgia trip. Musicians couldn't just release a project to the world by surprise without going on a little promo run beforehand. You know how everyone was gassing up the Clips rollout this year because they actually sat down with real journalists to discuss the music, discuss everything going on in their lives? That's great, and that brought us back to the essence of what an album rollout should feel like. You should build anticipation. You should build a world around your project. You should update fans on where your head is at before actually releasing this album to the world. That's great and all. This was the last time Drake did that. The last time he actually went into radio stations, talked to journalists, discussed what was going on in the culture, discussed what his music meant to him. And being put on the spot on a live interview where he couldn't edit out his answers or clear something up to make it sound more politically correct, it caught him in a little bit of a trap. It showed how sensitive he truly was and how he didn't understand why this verse was so important to hip-hop. There was a few interviews. The first one with Big Boy, where right off the bat, Drake is saying, I'm done with that Control verse, and so is the rest of the world. It was the talk of Twitter for a day or two, but it means nothing, and I'm more focused on this album that I'm trying to release that keeps getting distracted by the fact that you guys keep bringing up this freaking verse.
I'm probably like as done as like the rest of the world is with that record. Like I think it came and it went, you know what I mean? And not to discredit it, like it was a good moment, but at the end of the day, it's just like, it was like one of those sort of like fleeting like Twitter frenzies that like, it was cool for what it was, you know? And I'm just into making like, I like lasting power, you know, that's my thing. I want you to still be listening to this album in the summer or, you know, next year. So like not even about the music, you know what I mean? It wasn't even about the content of it. It just seemed to be about like, you know, all the and all the talking at the time. Now everybody's like over it. Nobody plays it. It's just like whatever.
But I think that's because it wasn't a single. And it did what it was meant to. It had people listening to lyrics and excited about hip hop.
And Drake was sad, all right? Drake was sad. He didn't understand why Kendrick Lamar would be so mean to him on that record, why he would bully him, right? He was saying Kendrick had a decision to make. Either he'd be the talk of Twitter for a day, or he would recognize the fact that he had real relationships with these rappers. And as Drake puts it, avoid, you know, bad-mouthing them on record. And Drake said he had no intention of doing a record with Kendrick Lamar at this point, and he thinks that no one who was mentioned on that Control verse should have any intention of collaborating with Kendrick Lamar again, because Kendrick was very mean to all of them.
When you heard your name, did you feel like, man, like that was kind of disrespectful?
I feel like he made a decision. He was like, man, I'm either going to go for this moment because I know it's going to be a big moment, or I'm going to like take heed to the fact that I have real relationships and I'm going to like not do that. I'll be real, like I've thought of doing that before. You know, I thought like, man, it would be crazy if I just went off on everybody, but it's just kind of like, where does it really get me? Then every time I rap, people are going to expect me to be confrontational, and when I'm not, then it's not entertaining. It kind of puts you in a box a bit. So
I don't think that put Kendrick in a box.
I don't know if I necessarily respect it. We all make decisions. I'm sure he'll be good. He's talented as He's going to have another album and another opportunity to take the world by storm. So he'll be all right, even if it doesn't feature, you know, any of the names that he mentioned, which it probably won't, to be honest with you. I don't know who's going to go back from that and be like, yeah, let's link up. And nah, you know what I'm saying? But he'll be all right. You know, he's a talented dude.
Does it make you, like, not want to collab with him?
Yeah, I'm good right now. You know what I'm saying?
Anyways, then Drake would go on to do an interview with Elliott Wilson. He'd be asked about the verse again, and he would emphasize he thinks Kendrick has a lot of potential, just like Lupe Fiasco, Jay Electronica, sunning Kendrick a little bit, calling him a baby, calling him their son. Drake is saying, you know, the guy has a lot of potential. He's great. You know, he's going to go on to do great things. Is he on my level? Probably not, but he has a lot of potential. As far as the verse goes, Drake thinks that no one remembers it at this point, right? Again, this was an interview done about a month after the verse was released. Drake thinks that no one is talking about it anymore. The buzz completely died down, and Drake is basically saying, like, was all that, you know, name dropping worth it when now you lost these relationships, now these people don't like you, all to be the talk of Twitter for a day?
He's the new guy to love, and of course, I mean, rightfully so. He's super talented, you know. But he's like the underdog that's extremely hungry, and he's doing his thing really well. And that verse was, he's giving people like moments, you know, like that verse was a moment to talk about. Are you listening to it now? Okay.
And he goes on to emphasize, like, can you even name how the verse starts? Oh, like all these different blogs, they're going to go on to give it verse of the millennium. They're all going to praise it. But at the end of the day, the sentiment behind it wasn't real because Kendrick didn't say F everybody. He wasn't really dissing everybody. He was just calling them out by name, which it's kind of like, if you're going to go there, go all the way there. That's how Drake puts it, right? He thinks Kendrick should have really went off. And boy, was he foreshadowing what was to come.
It was real cool for like, you know, a couple weeks. But like, if I asked you, how does that verse start? Complex and Rap Radar, give it like verse of the millennium and all that shit or whatever. I remember like somebody asking me, is Kendrick Lamar your biggest competition like in this generation? I think that Kendrick has like the utmost potential, man. I see Kendrick, I'm adapt him. I didn't feel a way about that verse. I get it. That verse had no malice behind it because I saw him 5 days later at the VMAs and it was all love. So it's like, he didn't come on there on some wild, like, yeah, I'm in New York, everybody don't look at me. I almost wish he had come in there on that because I kind of lost like a little respect for the sentiment of the verse. If it's really everybody, then it needs to be everybody. It just can't be halfway for the sake of the people.
And as far as, you know, being his biggest competition, Drake emphasizes again, and you could tell like he feels the direct threat here, but he's saying Kendrick at this point in his career is not the biggest threat. It's Kanye West who's creating great bodies of work, not moments on Twitter.
When it comes to competition, I'm more worried about consistency. I'm more worried about bodies of work. I'm basically talking about there's one guy who's up every night thinking about how to get better and how to do things bigger. And you know, that's Kanye West. He's always going to be the guy that's trying to outthink and outdo, you know, everybody.
So off the rip, you could see that Drake, A, does not understand what this verse was meant to accomplish. He does not appreciate the competitive nature behind it. And B, he thinks that he's leagues beyond Kendrick at this point. Kendrick cannot compete with him and therefore should not call him out unless he's really ready to go all the way there. And he doubled down on that thought on an interview with Angie Martinez where he said those were harsh words. What Kendrick said on Control, they were very harsh, mean words, and that, you know, he saw Kendrick later, it was all love. So he was also confused by the entire thing. Was it love or was it hate? Are you trying to kill me or do you want to live with me and grow with me? Ultimately, just not understanding that this was simply sparring, right? Kendrick is trying to say, elevate your game because I'm trying to be better than everybody. For some reason, Drake, out of every rapper that was mentioned on that verse, was the only one to actually take direct offense from it. Probably out of an insecurity that he didn't really feel like he was worthy of being in that same competitive bracket. But all in all, we got clown show responses left and right.
It just wasn't real to me. It's like I saw him after that and it was just like love. So it's like, was that real or was that just like for the people?
I think it's a sparring kind of sport.
Yeah, but you know, then let it be real then, you know. I mean, because those were harsh words, right? So it's like, you can't just say that and then see me and be like, yeah, man, what's up? Pretending like nothing ever happened. Like, that's not real.
And it was these words that really led to the beginning of what we would now know as the great battle between Kendrick and Drake. A couple months later, Kendrick would do the cypher at the BET Hip Hop Awards, and he would take direct aim at Drake, rapping, "Nothing's been the same since they dropped Control and tucked a sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes. Haha, joke's on you, high five, I'm bulletproof." Now remember also how Lupe Fiasco put out his response, SLR2, where he rapped, "I got 1 foot in LA, 1 foot in Spain." Well, on this BET cypher, Kendrick was also making reference to Lupe, where he said, "I got my thumb on hip-hop and my foot in the back of your butt. Aftermath, get the last laugh." And Drake would respond to this cypher with a verse of his own on the remix to Future's song SHIT, where he rapped, "Took people out the hood like I'm from there, so you know it's all good when I come there. I hear you talking about your city like you run that. Then I brought my tour to your city, you're my son there." Of course, in reference to the fact that Drake brought Kendrick on his Club Paradise tour before Kendrick put out Good Kid, Mad City, sunning Kendrick the same way Jay Electronica and Lupe Fiasco tried to do. Then Drake emphasizes he has nothing to win and everything to lose by mentioning another rapper's name on a verse, saying, "And if a guy says my name, he the hot stuff, but if I say a guy's name, he's still the hot stuff. Effed up. Lucky I don't feed into the gossip. People act like they don't know, but they should know. I just think it's funny how they're dangling the bait, but I'm the one that's killing guys on the hooks though." Basically implying that if Kendrick disses Drake, it powers Kendrick up, it gives him clout, gives him attention, but if Drake responds, it also gives Kendrick attention, so it's a lose-lose for Drake. But of course, he wouldn't have those same sentiments when he would respond in all-out warfare in April of 2024, after Kendrick called out him and J. Cole again, saying F the big three, it's just big me. Before that, there was a decade of subliminals that all stemmed from this very verse. from the reaction Drake gave because he couldn't understand that this was simply competition. And it's funny because Kendrick's intention with the Control verse were the same when he called out Drake and J. Cole again 10 years later with his verse on Like That. When he was asked about why he kicked off that entire battle after a very therapeutic album like Mr. Morale, he emphasized that he saw a lack of competition within hip-hop, and he wanted to bring that spirit back.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back, and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
And it seemed like Kendrick was on that same mission when he dropped Control in 2013. He saw a lack of competition in the atmosphere, so as a result he thought maybe if I shake the game up, it'll make everybody step their game up. And while some people understood it and appreciated bringing that competitive spirit back to hip-hop, it was unfortunately the one who refused to believe that this was all in the name of hip-hop, of competition, that would get lost in that competition when it ended up knocking at his front door. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.